Hello and welcome to the AT Center at TCNJ. This webinar series is facilitated by the Inclusive 365 team and focuses on inclusive practices. The Inclusive 365 team specializes in helping organizations create more inclusive educational environments. They are known for the book Inclusive Learning 365, EdTech Strategies for Every Day of the Year, and provide services to organizations such as book studies, webinars, and consultation to help educators develop and implement inclusive strategies. The team consists of 4 professionals: Christopher Bugaj, Karen Janowski, Beth Poss, and Mike Marotta. Join them as they introduce practical strategies you can implement immediately in your environment to promote inclusive practices. This is Module 9, Inclusive Strategies for Professional Learning. These webinars are made possible through our partnership with the New Jersey Department of Education, Office of Special Education. The statements issued by guest presenters do not reflect the stance of the NJDOE OSC. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice. Let's listen to the Inclusive 365 team.
Hello, everybody. We are back. Chris, we're back.
We're back, Mike. We're back to talk about professional learning, which is exactly what people are here for already. They're like, this is really meta. You know what I mean?
Love it. Yeah, that's right. We're going to get in your brains and really adjust that there. This is going to be good. Fun conversation this morning. I'm looking forward to it.
You're doing professional learning about a session about professional learning. So it's going to be great.
While you're professional learning. Perfect. If you would like the slides are available to you by that QR code. Feel free to download them. Some of the slides have links in them. They'll take you out to other resources. So we would suggest that you download the slides. Second to pause it and snap that picture. And while you do that, I'll give you a very thoughtful look. Maybe you'll pause the video and you'll have that look. There you go. All right, here we go. We are 2/4, some people might call it a half, of the Inclusive 365 team. My name is Mike Marotta. I am coming to you from New Jersey. I am an assistive tech specialist, the director of our state's Assistive Tech Act program, and just what I would call myself an inclusive technology evangelist.
And my name is Chris Bugaj. I am the Assistive Technology Specialist for Loudoun County Public Schools, which is, if you think of Virginia as like a triangle, it's like at the tippy top of that triangle. We're a county-based system. So I'm the Assistive Technology Specialist for about 100 schools. But I have a team of people that I work with that are facilitators that fan out across those schools. We have 9 of those. And like Mike, who is an evangelist, I think of myself as a inclusive design facilitator. Those facilitators work with educators like myself, work with educators all throughout the county, trying to help them design awesome experiences for everybody.
And our other compatriots there, Karen and Beth, are not with us today, but as you've seen, if you've been watching these videos, or if you haven't, get ready, because we just keep mixing it up and it's just a different 2 of us each time that you will get. So you'll definitely be able to hear from them as well. So you're missing them, but here we go with just the 2 of us, right?
So we've mentioned this before, that we wrote a book together. Mike, rather than talk about the book here, let's talk about the logo, right? So in the middle of the book and the card deck, as people watch these other videos, they already heard us talk about the tip cards and how the book is designed. But one thing that I think is foreshadowing for the rest of this professional learning session is the logo and the expression all in every day. The idea being that when it comes to professional learning, yes, we all learn things every day, but we want to be intentional about it, intentionally picking something and saying, hey, I want to study this thing. I want to get better at this thing. I want to learn more about this thing, you know? I mean, all the rage at the time of this recording is generative AI. I'm sure for the next 10 years, it will all continue to be the rage.
Yeah, I don't think that'll go away, right?
You know, but whatever your thing is that you want to learn more about, whether it's reading, writing, whatever the thing is, being intentional, saying, I want to get better at this thing. And that's sort of the heart of Inclusive 365 is all right, well, yeah, I want to get better. And I only have a few minutes a day to do that. So let's get all in on this thing, but do it every day with intentionality.
Love it. Love it. And you will see that as we go through with some of these ideas that we have to share with you in regards to professional learning. So sorry, Chris, I just stole your slide. I just realized your little guy was over there.
Do you know, Mike, I don't know, besides for me not having my glasses on and my little Bitmoji there, I don't know. We could be trading in and out there.
It is, here's a little aside. You want to get on a soapbox for a second, just a little aside. I'm not a huge fan of the new Bitmoji experience.
No.
I don't like the way they look. You'll look at it at the bottom right corner. I don't like it. And that is Chris's, but he's right. And put glasses on it, it's pretty close to mine too. Yeah, I like the old ones. And so I'm going to go through all of my old presentations and just pull the Bitmojis out just to have them, because I'd rather use those. So there you go.
This is also something to be explicit about, since people are maybe looking for, well, I do professional learning, like I do sessions for people, and sometimes I partner up with people. This has been a thing we've used forever, is throw your Bitmoji on there, and then you're the first one to talk about the slide. It doesn't necessarily mean, and obviously we break that rule sometimes too. It doesn't
just right now.
Exactly. It doesn't matter, but the idea is that, and then everyone knows who you're presenting with, that okay, you're going to kick this one off, and we all are invited to jump in if we have other things to say.
Little tip and trick. There it is. That's just what we've learned over time. Imagine there was 4 of us right now trying to talk, and just having some kind of semblance of organization here helps as we jump off and go through.
All right, so let's get into it. This is our focus on professional learning. I know that some of the things in here are, well, I think they're going to be really useful for everybody.
I agree. Chris and I just said before we started, I said to Chris, and he agreed. I'm like, I really like this. This one is fun. To me, this one is fun. And maybe that's because I'm someone who loves to learn every day and finds these little moments too. And I know Chris is that way too. And so maybe that's why this is fun, is because this just seems so ingrained in the way we move from day to day. This idea, this motto, this mantra of just keep learning, just finding new things. And one thing about that finding new things that I think that a lot of us do, I would hope a lot of us do, is learning those new things, but then finding avenues to share those new things. I think that's the huge part, is that, that opportunity to take info in, reflect on it, synthesize it, share it with others, so that the people you work with and support have those opportunities for growth too.
Mike, you put this slide in here, and when we were previewing the slides, getting ready for this, this recording, I saw this slide and I was like, oh yeah, this is an awesome image to talk about professional learning, because so often we talk about growth mindset, and this is what this image reminds me of, is the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. If you're first hearing that for the first time, that's the work of Carol Dweck. But the idea here is that, if you have probably said to yourself, I'm just not a math person, or I'm just not a technology person. And the idea is to throw that word yet at the end. Well, I'm just not a technology person yet, or I'm just not a math person yet, but I will get there, and that's what that watering of the idea over there on that side reminded me of, Mike. It was like, I'll give you another example of a thing popping off, well, again, over the last 10 years, and I'm sure it will continue on, is I have a 3D printer, and my 3D printer over the weekend crapped out on me. And I was like, all right, I am not someone who knows how to fix a 3D printer yet, but I'm going to learn. I have generative AI, I have forums, I have websites, I have all these, I have YouTube videos, I have all these ways to learn about why my thing isn't working. And I wish I had a happy ending for this, Mike. I don't yet. But
I was so
excited. I have not given up, right? That's the whole point, is that I haven't figured out how to fix it yet, but I will someday, and I believe that I will,
That's right. Belief is critical there. Believe. Hit it with some Ted Lasso. Believe.
That's right. And I'll try not to forget what I learned yesterday. I'm going to try and not be a goldfish when it comes to learning.
Exactly. Keep building on that. It'll get there for sure. Oh, that's great.
All right, there it is. We talked about this already. I learn a little bit every day, little chunks. Trying to do some sort of giant. Everyone knows this, right? I mean, I work for a school district, and school districts around the country have professional learning days, either at the beginning or middle or end of the year. And then you have during those days, you go to trainings, and it's all these. You just sit there for a day through going through different trainings, and then you have online trainings that you go through, and you don't stagger those. You try and get them all done at one time. And do you remember anything? It's like, it's not the great way to learn is to dump everything into your brain all at once. And then, yes, you do that. You probably remember cramming for an exam, and then you spit it back out on the exam. And 3 weeks later, you're like, what was that again? Like, I don't remember, right? The idea is small chunks, a little bit over time, just like the book, 365, 1 page a day.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know. My computer just decided to regroup itself. So we'll just keep talking for a second. Here we go.
I thought you were going to show something. Like,
no, I wish I had something I wish I could say I was in charge there. It just did that. I don't even know. All right, here we go. Let's try that again. We're not going to pause. We're not going to do it. We're just going to keep talking.
Yeah, keep going. All right, so one of my favorite tools is coming up, and strategies is coming up. And so if we're going to do something every day, we're going to learn something every day. I think what's really important is that we're learning the right thing, right? And so here we are. You can get information from videos like this. You can get information from webinars. You get information from you're scrolling on Instagram. You're listening to podcasts. You're listening to or talking to or typing to generative AI. There's in-person sessions you go to where people talking to you. There's never been a time in history, in recorded history, that there's been more information that we can take in. So something we have to have is, well, how do we filter through what's valid information? How do I spend my very valuable minutes on learning this because this thing is going to help me or help others versus, I went down this rabbit hole into Wonderland and now I'm, fighting the Dormouse and the Mad Hatter, like the Queen. What's the Queen of Hearts? Like how you don't want to get lost in that weed over here. You want to stay and do stuff that's valid because you have so much time. So the question is, how do you know when we're selling you something or telling you something? When I say sell you, I don't mean my money. I mean selling you an idea or a professional learning session of any sort. How do you know what's valid? And so here are the 3 criteria that I think we call evidence-based practice. A lot of people will say evidence-based practice, and what they really mean is this first bullet, Mike, which is research. So they use those terms interchangeably, like, evidence is because there's science behind it, then there's evidence behind it. But that link down there is to the American Speech and Hearing Association definition of evidence-based practice. And what it says is there's like a little triangle, and research, the science, is only one side of this 3-sided triangle. So yes, there has to be science behind it, and it has to be good science. There's levels of validity in science too. If I just did a survey of 10 of my friends, yeah, I did research, but it's probably going to be biased and it's not that deep of research. So, has it been duplicated by other people, right? Is it criterion referenced? All this sort of stuff is good research. So what is the science saying? Then the second thing is, what are professionals saying about whatever that strategy is or whatever that resource is or whatever it is that someone's trying to convince you to do or learn more about? Well, are there professionals that have already learned more about it, and would they say that it works for them? Yeah, I work with these kids and I use this strategy and therefore I can say it works. And also their strategy has research behind it. We often talk about listening to text in a reading one, right? Yes, copious amounts of research that listening to text helps people become better readers. So research, and then a bunch of educators would say, yeah, I've seen it. I've seen kids listen to text and they become better readers. But here, Mike, here's my experience. Tell me if this is what you find. A lot of people stop right here. It's science and what my friends are telling me or what other professionals are telling me. Is that?
I agree. I'm looking at our list of 3 things here, and I'm thinking there might be people that don't go any further than the middle one there. It's just, I've gone to TikTok and I've seen people talking about it. And I saw more than one person talk about it. So
must be true.
Must be good. Must be right. It must be well thought out. And so I think you're right. I think that you will get people that stop here. And that's, I don't know that that's a dig on people. I think that's a dig on people's time and trying to make a difference sometimes quickly, knowing that we don't necessarily always have time to dig into. I mean, you tell people to go look and check out the research. Oh, a whole chunk of people, myself included, some days are like, no, thank you. Not today. Maybe tomorrow, but not right now. And I think you get that more often. And I appreciate people's time and I get that. And so I think as people who deliver professional learning experiences to others, to adults, we have to empathize with that and find opportunities to bring them into these other parts. Like, yes, I hear that you went and visited 3 different TikTokers and they all said that was great. Here's an article I found about this that talks about some of the research says, why don't you check this out? And let's synthesize those together.
Yeah, it complements, right? Then you're like, okay,
exactly.
that's 2. Now I've got 2 points of evidence, but there's still this third part of the triangle. Before you hit the button, let me pause it here and say, everybody, this is a moment that you could pause this video and go do a quick Google search for this, and that it is electroshock therapy. Like, so if you were to go and look up the research on electroshock therapy, does the science say that electroshock therapy actually helps for the conditions that it's meant to help for? And then could you certainly find professionals out there in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe 80s, maybe even early 90s that were shocking people? Spoiler alert. Go ahead. Look it up now. And welcome back.
Hello, welcome back.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, it actually helps. And sure, in those different decades I just mentioned, you could find people that were shocking people. Would we be shocking people now in 2025 and beyond? Probably not, because of this third bullet point, which is, what are the people who the strategies are meant to help? What do they say about the strategy? What do they say about the technique or whatever the feature is? And you can't find any, but it's like, you know what would really help me is when you put those electrodes on my head and then you jacked up the electricity and you shocked it through me like I was Frankenstein. Like, no,
Right.
like that doesn't, nobody says that, right? Because it's painful. So the idea here is, well, okay, there's people with disabilities who have a lived experience. They can tell you what has worked for them, and they can tell you what has not worked for them. And that can then, by having all 3 of those branches of the triangle, or all 3 sides of the triangle, you can go, yeah, now I'm going to put some minutes behind this. You know, if I can find people with disabilities that say it's good, there's science behind it, and other professionals are saying it's good, and all 3 of those are good, now I want to learn more. That's now put that on my calendar. Let's start doing daily work to get better at it.
You know what's interesting too, and I think about those bullets as we go back to that example we just shared of educators going out to search on TikTok for other people doing it. You could also search on those same social media channels for individuals who have had those experiences, sharing them. So even broadening your search a bit on some of those tools or digging a little deeper may give you those experiences, which you might not have thought to kind of draw into your decision making at first, but there they are. I think it's easier than ever to not only get information, but to get real world first person experience information now. And that can happen on social media channels. I think it's a great way to explore that.
100%. Could not agree more. How much have I learned from being in those communities? I mean, just a quick experience. I remember the hashtag back on Twitter, before it became X, spending hours reading the actually autistic hashtag. Just, we had TweetDeck, remember, and we would look through columns, and there had a column that just had the hashtag actually autistic, and I would just read through people who are just sharing their lived experience with the hashtag actually autistic. Wow, okay, so that happened to you. Wow, okay, that happened to you. Oh, that's your perspective here. It just opens up a world to say, yeah, so maybe I'll spend a little bit more time doing these and a little less time doing this when I'm helping families and individuals come up with strategies. Now, go back to the research, Mike. Here's what the next thing coming up. So if you'll go to the next slide, I think this takes you to a way to get the research faster. So here we talk about generative AI. One way, a cool generative AI tool that I use all the time now is consensus.app. And what this allows you to do, like Mike, you said, someone will go, yeah, here, what's the research on this thing I heard on TikTok, or I want to look it up. And then it's like, well, I don't know that I have time to look it up, right? Like I've got a busy life with family and work and all health and everything else going on. I don't have time to dig into it right now. And there's also the phenomenon that I'm sure you experience. I experience it all the time. Is when I'm helping a family or an educator sometimes, they won't believe me. You can't be a prophet in your own land, right? Like,
Correct.
I'll tell you, hey, I've read the research on this. I've done the day-to-day marathon to learn this. Here's what the research says. And they're going to go, they don't believe you.
Yeah.
You know what? So this tool, consensus.app, what it does, it allows you to go over there. It's a generative AI tool where you go in, you ask a question in language, and it then culls through the research, and it gives you sort of a confidence level of, well, here's the answer to your question. Does the research that exists support this, or, how does it answer the question? So like the two that are here on the screen is, does learning in inclusive settings with general education peers improve outcomes for students with disabilities? It's our whole webinar is all about inclusive. Is there research behind it? Well, that little link there in the yellow box, it says the results, takes you to the consensus link of that answers that question. And again, spoiler alert, you can see it right up there. It's like, yes, all the research says that it helps everybody.
We did it, Chris.
And then my other sample there, Mike, is how many times have I sat across a table or sit side by side with a family and say, all right, I have this communication device. We're going to implement this with your child. Or we're going to figure out, or we're going to discuss using AAC with your child and figure out what that tool is going to be. And that parent's going to go, yeah, but isn't it going to steal their voice? And I can say, no, all the research shows that it's just going to help. The AAC is only going to help. And they're going to go, I don't believe you, guy. Yeah, so now I don't have to go and get buckets of research or get into a research battle with somebody, where someone's like, well, I'm going to present my research and you present your research. All that can go away. You just be like, here, let's take ourselves, the human element out of it, put the question in, and well, let's let the fates decide, because generative AI is going to cull through the research. And if you know your stuff, you'll be able to find the findings. This is also a great way to go when you're not sure. Or if you think you're sure and your cognitive bias is getting in the way, going to make sure you're sure.
Great tool for that. Great tool. Love it.
Oh, okay. Got it. Guy had to put this one there, Mike. Podcast.
Got to. I actually added one in your little menagerie of pictures here.
All right. Which one did you add in?
You added at the bottom, the House of EdTech podcast. I was
going to guess. That's what it was. All right. What's the House of EdTech?
So the House of EdTech, Chris Nessie, great podcast. Another New Jersey guy, can't beat that. Talking about ways to integrate technology into the classroom, asking the questions, bringing educators on who are working with different types of technology tools and having success with their learners. Great podcast.
Yeah. The other one, of course, that I'll talk about here is Talking with Tech.
Tell me more.
That's the podcast that I do with Rachel Madel. Rachel Madel's a private speech therapist that works out in Los Angeles. Here I work for public schools on the East Coast. We get together about once a week, and every episode is not every episode, but almost every episode is a little banter where we talk about something in the world of AAC, and then we usually roll into some sort of interview. Again, trying to hit that we talked about in that evidence-based triangle, which is, well, I never met somebody that has this disability or that uses this tool. Well, we know you probably have not met somebody who can say whatever they want to say, however they want to say it with a communication device. So let's bring them on our podcast and you can listen to it. The Talk with Tech podcast is, Mike, you're going to believe this, 8 years at the time of this recording.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. But point is, whatever you want to learn about, there's probably a podcast out there. If you're like, yeah, okay, ed tech or inclusive technology, I'm kind of tapped out with these videos right now. If you're into quilting, there's probably a podcast on quilting. Like whatever you want to learn about, there's probably a podcast about that. And If there's not, then you know what that means.
There's a hole in the market.
That's right. It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity.
It means the world needs you, right?
That's
to
right.
go make it. Yeah, podcast, right? Probably my number one way of learning things in my entire career is listening to podcasts.
I agree. I feel like podcasts, great example, and I don't think I'm saying anything earth-shakingly new here. Great example of stealing back lost time for learning. I'm in the car. That's probably should be the beginning and end of that sentence. I'm in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be listening to something as I'm going between places. And I think those just opportunities for learning all the time, anytime. Love it. And taking a kind of detour from that same strategy that Chris just mentioned, and even going back to his idea of the podcast doesn't exist, maybe you create it. Well, why not let an AI tool perhaps create something for you? So if you haven't played yet with Notebook LM from Google, great tool. It's an excellent tool. It's free. It's part of your Google suite. In fact, I just updated my Chromebook and Notebook LM has an icon on the bottom of the system tray now. It's just part of the Chrome OS now, which is pretty cool that it just showed up. And so what do you get with Notebook LM? Here's a screenshot of it. It is an opportunity. Let's back up for a second. Think about any other generative AI tool. You ask it a question or a prompt of some kind. It goes out, finds some information, and brings it back to you. You don't know where that information was from. You don't know where it's culling all of this information from. Well, how about Notebook LM? You choose the sources. This screenshot, I was doing a presentation on inclusive employment, assistive tech for employment. And so I wanted to pull some sources that I knew would make sense for this. And so on the left-hand side is the sources I found, a website, a YouTube video. I copied and pasted some text in, and then I found a second website. So it came from all these different sources. The tool created its information base from just those resources I embedded in there. And the center of it is a traditional AI chatbot. Ask it questions, it gives you answers, off you go. Everybody's happy. We answer questions. The right-hand side of this tool, the studio part, is the coolest part. Chris, can you even stand this part? It's so cool.
No, it's when it's like magic. That's what it's like.
Right? I don't know what else to say. It's like magic. So you have on the right-hand side an opportunity for two different kind of unique things now, actually three, and we're going to talk about two. You can click a button and the Notebook LM will create an audio overview, in essence, a podcast episode of the sources you put into it. And so there, by clicking that button, it creates it. You can listen to it. It is AI voices, there are two, talking to each other about your topic. And it's shockingly realistic, like uncomfortably realistic at times.
I've certainly fooled people without telling them, like, okay, we're going to listen to this. What do you guys think? Then tell them that it's generative AI, and they're like, no way.
And then hit the button again and let them listen one more time. And then their brains start to just smoke. They're just too much for them. Yeah. And so that's a really nice feature. Again, thinking about ways to absorb information and get it differently. The other piece that they just added to this is a video overview. So now you get that same idea of AI voices talking about your information, but with visuals attached to it that gets created through AI. Very, very cool. It's interesting. It takes a while to produce that little video clip. I just did it before we started today, and it probably took 15 minutes to process that and get it together. So just have that in your mind. But now you have that ability to basically pull your own resources and create a podcast about anything you're interested in. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Mike, just to also reiterate that the strategy is making your own podcast, right? And Notebook LM is the tool that supports that strategy. For a while, it was the only one, or maybe the best one, because it was the first one I ever heard of. If there was something before that did that, I had never heard of it. It was Notebook LM. But Microsoft Copilot has recently caught up, and Microsoft has a version. And at the time of this recording, it provides a transcript that Notebook LM, at least to my knowledge, doesn't do yet. I mean, you can get the audio and you can put it into another tool that will give you the transcript, but it's not seamless yet. Copilot does that, and Copilot has a translation feature, which I'm sure Google will catch up. I'm sure it's
these will all always constantly be that way for sure, which is great, which is only better for us, right? All of those things are only better for the people using it.
Exactly. And just bring it back to the point, in case you're watching this going, well, my school district doesn't have Google, Mike. Well, but you have Microsoft. Chances are you have Microsoft or Google, right?
Yeah. And also, and check these things with your school. Like Chris mentions, your school doesn't have it. Even if you are a Google school, you might not see this tool.
That's right.
Your tech department might have decided that this is not something they've rolled out to everyone. And so you might have to ask them about this. And this might be something, if you were going to use this to support the learners in your classroom, you may have to generate some of these things off-site and bring them in. The nice thing about the audio and the video overview in Notebook LM, once you've created them, you can download them as files and then drop those files into your Google Drive and just share them the way you would any other file. And so there's a way around that if you're creating it kind of out of school or out of the network. You can bring the actual artifacts back into the network, which I think is really important.
Mike, one other thing about this making your own podcast as opposed to making your own audio is that just imagine this experience right now that you're participating in, but it's only Mike or it's only me, right? And it's just one voice for an hour talking through things. How many times would you pause it, get up, move away, because it's just sort of someone droning on? Where when it's a conversation, you get these two different voices and two different perspectives, and it's a back and forth, and it seems to maintain attention longer, at least for me. I know, Mike, one of the podcasts I listen to is I'm a horror movie fan. You know this about me. I like horror movies. And
now we're getting into it. All right, now I'll tell you some podcasts.
And this one podcast, it's this guy he brings on different guests, and they all talk about these different horror movies, right? But occasionally, this research person, just writes a monologue, and she records it and she sends it in, and then he plays this clip, and I always phase out during that because it's just her doing a monologue for the entire time, with no feedback from anything. It's not like a talk show host doing a monologue where you get the audience feedback. It's just someone talking for this long period of time, and it's like, all right, can I go to 3 times the speed to get
How do I get through this as fast as possible?
Yeah. But there's something about that exchange back and forth that makes making your own podcast the different strategy than just making your own audio.
Yeah, I agree. I think I always think whenever I show a group that audio overview feature for the first time, the part that appears to blow the most minds is exactly what Chris just said. And I hear us doing it as we're talking, where each of us might at some point go, yeah. That's the part in that overview that gets me every time, is when there's one voice and then out of nowhere, the other I'm going to call a person is like, yeah, right. Yeah. And that's enough right there. I agree. That's the part that it's mind blowing. Great stuff. All right. So definitely, if you haven't played, go play. Check this out. Check Copilot out. Try them both. What I would say, what would be interesting is what I tend to do with things like this: load the same resources into both tools, and then get both of the audio overviews and see what those differences are. Listen to the differences and get a sense of how they're pulling it through. Interestingly, I've done that. If you look at the screenshot on the right, I've pulled an audio overview out of this several times just to see if it was different. And it's really not. It's pretty much about the same. It's a couple seconds different, but it's in essence the same. I was always curious, would it just keep pulling different pieces? But no, it seems to pull about the same stuff each time. So check it out. Here's another one. We laugh at this one, and I threw it in just because we had laughed about it the last time we talked about it. We were lamenting the idea that Flipgrid went away, or Flip went away. And did it go away? No. If you're a Microsoft school, you still have it. Congrats. Awesome. The rest of us don't, apparently. So it's kind of gone. And so one of the powerful things, both for classroom use, for learners to respond, but I actually used it quite a bit with adults when we were doing adult training, was this idea of giving prompts and having people respond back and then talk to each other through those prompts, through those responses. And without Flip, we don't really have a tool for that. That's as smooth as that. I think one of the things about Flip is it was easy. And it was very powerful. And so we brought back an old school tool. This tool's been around for a long time, and it had gone to the side as Flip came up. It's called VoiceThread. Same kind of idea. I can put a prompt in there. You can respond in any way you'd like. You can put text, you can put audio, video, whatever it is. And then those responses get layered. And then I can just watch them as I go. You could also do this in Padlet. I should have added Padlet to the slide too. Padlet would let you do this. And I think Padlet's a great example of another tool that allows you to give multiple ways for someone to respond, whatever works for them. And so if you're looking for a tool and you're still at this idea of, I wish Flipgrid still existed, try this. It's powerful. It works.
Love it. Love it. It's like a chat, but you get to choose the modality that you want to participate with. Well, you can use text, but you can use your voice, or you can use video, and you can put images in there too. It gives you all the options. It's great.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea of that flexibility of how the responder chooses to respond. One of the things that always made me laugh and Flip when I would do that with adults not real quick to videotape themselves.
No.
Not really big fans. So I'd get a lot of videos where it would basically be audio and the hand would be over the screen like that. And that's how I would see their palm the whole time. And that's just, and again, that's fine. We were getting the participation. That's what it was about. It didn't matter that I didn't see or not. But I think the idea of a VoiceThread and even Padlet, same idea. I can just embed audio in a Padlet and just move on, which is great. So think about that as you're looking for participation in professional learning. By the way, that link over there, if you want to pause this and go, there you go. There's participate. Look at this guy over here. That's a good way to have a video. That's like a passive aggressive. Oh, sure. You want a video of me? Great. Here you go. And people will change that in multiple ways. Chris, don't think I haven't seen all those in my videos. I've seen dogs where they shoot a picture of their dog and they're talking off screen. I mean, all of these things. But this VoiceThread is active. If you want to scan the QR code, it will take you to VoiceThread and it'll let you put an answer there, put a response there. So don't be shy. Get in there. Leave a message, leave a response.
So here's the idea, is that there are places you can go that already have done kind of like Inclusive 365, these videos. If you're like, well, this was awesome and now I'm hungry for more, where can I go get more? Well, there's other places that have similar content or adjacent content to what we're sharing. And so they're friends of ours, we're friends of theirs. We like to promote their work. So here is CITES, the Center on Inclusive Technology and Education Systems, which is from CAST. What is it, every year, Mike, they pick 3 schools? Is it every year? I forget how often it is.
It's every go around, like every time they get reauthorized.
Gotcha.
They're choosing. Last time it was schools. This time, I feel like Chris just set me up there. This time they chose states, and those states picked pilot schools within them. And
Gotcha.
I'm happy to say we were one of the pilot states in New Jersey, which is pretty exciting. So we have 2 schools we're working with, and the CITES people are working intensively with those schools to develop the systems, using them as a pilot, and then we're going to roll that out to the rest of the schools in our state. Like, hey, you could do it. Look, these people did it, and here's what they did. So that's been really exciting so far. But like Chris said, tons of information on their website. Great resources.
Pre-made professional learning. And then you've got the Microsoft Learn Education Center there, or we have it there. And that's another place where tons of companies now have professional learning that transcends just learning how to use their tools. It's about how to make life better for people using their tools, right? And so just you can ferret out different organizations that have, these are two to start with, that are already working on developing inclusive mindset or inclusive practices.
And if you want to go even deeper, where are you? What state are you in? The beauty here is every person watching this right now, if you live in the United States or one of our territories, you have an Assistive Technology Act program in your area. And they are tasked at the federal level to make sure people in your state understand the different kinds of technology that could support people with disabilities, people with older adults, people who need assistance being successful. How about that? I'm going to make it as broad as possible, which I think is great. These organizations are there. The beauty of it is every one of them is tasked with three key things. They have to be able to provide opportunities to show you technology that might help you. Those are called demonstrations. I can't do this. Well, let us show you some things that allow you to do this. They will have technology loan programs, which I think, and I talk about in our state a lot. This is one of my favorite things we have because there's so much out there that you might find online and be like, well, that thing looks really cool, but I don't have $300 to buy it. So I don't know. I don't know if it'll work. The loan programs probably have that tool and they can loan it to you. I know in our state, and I can't speak to others, so please don't hold me to this. In our state, in New Jersey, our loan center is free. You call us, you get on our website, say, I want this. We ship it to you. You keep it for 3 weeks. We give you a label to ship it back. It doesn't cost you anything. You get an opportunity to, as I say, move through the honeymoon phase to the does it work or does it not work? Or if you think about Amazon purchases, everything looks great the day you buy it on Amazon. And then 2 days later, when you're standing in line at Kohl's to return it, you wonder what happened. Like, how did it go so wrong in 2 days? But that's the whole point of the loan center, is to give you that chance to try it out where you're going to be using it with the people you're going to be using it with. And then finally, they will all do device reutilization, taking unused medical equipment from the community and putting it back into the community, getting it out of your basements, getting it into someone else's hands who might need it, which is awesome. And then they'll do some form of training. Those are just the things we do. If you are searching for your center, go do a Google search on the AT3 Center. There's a list right on their front page of their website that shows you who your state center is.
Mike, question about New Jersey, because we're recording this, and I think most of the people that are watching this are probably from New Jersey, but there could be others, right?
Yeah.
Here I am in Virginia. Virginia being a larger geographical state than New Jersey, ours is called TTAC, and TTAC is split up into regions. So it's like, well, geez, how can I go see this piece of equipment? They're going to ship this giant thing to me? No, but there's regions, so you can go to the regional center. Do you guys have regions in New Jersey, or is it just the one because you're a smaller state?
Yeah, we're small enough geographically that we just have one. But yeah, Chris is right. If you're in some other states, a Texas or something like that, there are areas there are centers that cover different areas they're all part of the same system. So yeah, it's gonna depend. The great part about the way the centers are all set up is, regardless of how they're set up, you're going to get those couple services, which is awesome. So those things happen. It just might happen a little differently in each state, and the way they perform those tasks might be a little different. In our state, we prefer to do our demonstrations in person. We're a small enough state, a couple hours, one end to the other to get to somebody. We go to the person and bring technology. I don't know if that's the case in every state, because I don't know if geographically that makes sense in every state. And so you might have to find out. But I think those are good questions to kind of be ready for. And like Chris said, if you're listening to us from New Jersey, come talk to us. There's our thing. We're at4nj.org. Come find us.
And then They do online. You said there's in-person stuff, but then many of them do online trainings like these webinars that we're watching right now, these videos, right? I know Virginia does, the TTAC has, and they put on a, like every other year, they put on a conference, like an in-person conference, as long as there's funding, but they have websites and videos and that's for everyone. It's
Yeah.
not like just because you're in Virginia, you can only use the Virginia stuff. It's everybody can use everybody. Sort of like I was talking about in the last slide, there's all these resources that are available out in the world. Well, the AT3 Center and finding yours or finding any of them would be a great place to go search for free training materials.
Yeah. And there will also, those centers in your state will be a little more tapped into what else exists in your state. So even if you have questions like, do we have this in our state, or who might I talk to, or where would that be? They might have a kind of a good directory of places they can point you towards to get you some help. Awesome. All right. This whole thing was just an AT-ACT commercial. I love it. That was great. I feel good about that. All right. We've already talked a little bit about social media and the power of this to go find information. And so this is just your other reminder. This is a great way to do that, both to gather information and to build a network. What does a network do? A network helps you all the time. It's so critical. We could sit here and probably lament the idea that Twitter, now X, is not nearly the network it was at one point. But there are other options out there. Don't sleep on things like TikTok and Instagram, because they are quite rich with information about technology. You may have to sort through to get there, but I think you do that on social media anyway. You kind of sort through to find things. So think about, what is it you're searching for? Find information there. Find people who are talking about it, and then connect yourself to those people, and then learn more from them as you go. Chris mentioned the idea of TweetDeck before, the idea of columns. There's your Blue Sky version of TweetDeck, which is their Blue Sky version, which called, if you have a Blue Sky account, go to the website deck.blue, log into it. It will give you a TweetDeck view where you can follow things in columns, similar to how you would in TweetDeck for Twitter. So keep that in mind. Search those out. Chris, what did I miss about social media?
No, I think that's everything. I couldn't agree more. I learned so much from TikTok and Instagram Reels about generative AI, about 3D printing. Whatever the thing is that I want to learn about, I go in there with intentionality. The algorithm now knows me and knows that that's what I'm looking for. I get sometimes that, like you said, you have to do a search so that you can not just go to the For You page or whatever and get stuck into your own little bubble, actively seeking out alternative viewpoints, which is why that columns in deck.blue, I forgot about that, Mike. So I'm so glad that you put that in here. Because I'm like, right, because then you can see different people's perspectives and not just wrap yourself around your own nice little warm blanket of your own algorithm, and then everything you're seeing agrees with you,
Yeah, and that's true, right? Sometimes people forget that algorithm is a good thing because it may introduce you to other things. It also could be a bad thing at times because it's only giving you things that it thinks make sense for you and not allowing you to kind of spread out a little bit.
Exactly.
I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day about, they said, did you see my post somewhere? And I was like, well, no, I didn't. And they're like, well, you got to watch more of my stuff so I get in your algorithm so that my stuff shows up. And that could happen. So it is tricky. Be a little broad with your searches sometimes. Those resources are out there.
Well, I guess we should say, Mike, follow us on all the things.
Oh, sure. Okay. That seems self-serving, but yeah. Okay. Fine. Like the self-serving picture at the bottom. Sure. What the heck? Follow us on everything. Look how much fun we are. Why wouldn't you follow us?
All right, so this idea of micro-credentialing is essentially giving people badges, or this all in every day, learning a little bit every day is, well, you can incrementally earn badges. The idea here with micro-credentialing, really, I think it was born out of like the Scouts, right? But then a lot of video games have sort of embraced that, and a lot of video game platforms like Steam and things, where almost every game now, if you're playing it online, you earn different little badges along the way. It's this little dopamine hit that's like, hey, I accomplished something, and I can keep going to accomplish the next thing. And what's the next thing, right? We, Mike, did this in our school district around AAC again, where we created some professional learning, put it up. We used Schoology, but whatever the learning management platform is, people finish our little online course and they get a badge. And when we were making them, we were like, do people really care about that? Like, do they really care about the badge? Sure enough, a lot of people are like, they told us, they gave us feedback. They were like, we like getting the badges. We're going to see what the next design is. We want to see, which is easy enough to make these badges in Canvas or Canva, and or Adobe Express or whatever, or generative AI. There's tons of ways to make them now. But it's a little badge with a little credential that says, hey, I earned this thing. And you can break down large topics like AAC, for instance, into these little micro learning. So you can feel like you're incrementally getting there. You know what I mean? It can be so daunting, overwhelming to say, geez, I got to learn how to fix my 3D printer. Yeah, it is daunting, overwhelming. But, well, okay, I just need to learn about these heating elements right now. Oh, okay, I got my micro credential.
My heating element badge.
Exactly. Now I know how that works, right? And so same thing, if you're developing professional learning, consider, well, okay, how would we break these down into steps, and what would be those little micro credentials? And then how often do people need to re-up? Like, all right, how long is this credential good for? 3 years, maybe, let's say. It depends on what it is. But all that is good stuff that drives people to keep learning.
And then I throw this in. I'm fresh off. So we're in the summer of 2025 when we're recording this. I'm fresh off of EdCamp New Jersey, which just happened. And so this feels like I'm excited to throw it back in. This idea of, if you've never gone to an EdCamp, it is a participant-led experience. And I would say before the pandemic, these were all the rage. Huge. I don't know if they're starting to come back, I think, a little bit, but where people in the community are coming together to talk about this. But the idea of this, the principle of it, is so awesome. This thought of creating a learning space and then saying to professionals, what do you want to talk about? Go talk about it. That's it. There's an amazing amount of trust there. There's this idea of learning autonomy and picking your place in a learning experience can be huge. And EdCamp is a great example of how to do that and what that looks like. You could do this anywhere. You could have this as part of, Chris mentioned your in-service days and things like that. There's nothing that says you couldn't take an hour from your in-service day and let people choose what they want to talk about. Not the whole day, because I think that would just be too much for some people sometimes, but and by that I mean administration. Oh, sorry. They want those things they want to talk about. But I think that if you did this, what you find is the conversations are deeper. The learning is deeper because it's real and it matters to the people there. And I think that is a really powerful thing. And so if you get a chance to visit and there's an EdCamp around you, check it out. If not, think about, are there ways we can EdCampify some meeting we're having, even if it's a part of a meeting? Gather ideas from people and then take 15 minutes out of a meeting and say, oh, this came from somebody. We're going to pick it out of a hat. And this is what we're going to talk about today. And then next time we'll pick another one and we'll talk about that, but give people some ownership of the learning experience.
Mike, I'm a giant fan of the EdCamp that happens. Well, it's happened for, gosh, how many years now? Every year for the last, you probably know, I'm going to guess 12 years. It's maybe a little bit longer. I don't know, 12 years at the Assistive Technology Industry Association conference down in Orlando, Florida, usually in late January or early February. Assistive technology, all these people get together and talk about assistive technology at a conference, just like you'd experience, like you go to sessions and things. But Mike was instrumental in organizing, and Karen, organizing, and others, the EdCamp, that experience that happened at ATIA. And, I would go every year because I'm a giant fan. It would be Friday night after all day of being at a conference, and people would show up and want to talk about whatever was on their mind that they didn't get to do during the conference. Or maybe it was something at the conference they learned about, but they wanted to dig deeper, pull up circles, pull up a big circle and just sit around and talk about it for an hour, sometimes take notes, sometimes not, whatever, and get different people's perspective. I've said it now at least 10 years in a row, Mike. It's my favorite part of ATIA is getting together and talking with those other people.
Yeah, it's that idea of, and the thought of that is that, like Chris said, we're at a conference for several days. You're getting towards the end, you've seen and you've sat in a lot of things and you've gathered a lot of new information. At some point, you need to sit down and say, okay, well, now what? How am I going to do something with that information as I go forward? And those opportunities to just talk are critical to having people kind of cement this idea of, I'm going to take this and I'm going to do this when I go back. And this makes sense. And Christian, we're right on, pretty close. It's 10 years.
10
It was
years.
10 years. It was just 10 years. Yeah. For the Ed Camp at ATIA. But, thinking about an Ed Camp, it might sound daunting to put that together. It is not.
No.
Get a couple people that are like-minded and say, we're going to do this. And then just do it. Just talk to people, encourage them to come. For some people, an Ed Camp experience is very scary because they get there and there is nothing on a board to talk about. There are no sessions. There are no ideas. That all comes from people. Like, I want to talk about this. And then people just write it down. And the beauty of that is that just because you suggest it doesn't mean you need to lead the conversation. These are not presentations. These are conversations. And I think those are really important things to remember about that in itself. Just flipping that around a little bit is huge for learning, is that I'm not going to have slides. I'm not going to talk at you for 40 minutes. Here's a topic. What do you want to talk about? And in fact, at the past Ed Camp that just happened, it was funny because I suggested a topic, inclusive technology in the classroom. Great, very broad. Classroom was shockingly full, which was very exciting, which was awesome because sometimes it's not. This one was. And we were all sitting there together in this classroom and we're kind of looking around. And so I started the group. I said, all right, well, you came. What do you want to talk about? Let's talk about what you want to talk about. Where are we going with this? And then we went off on about 80 different tangents throughout the 40 minutes. And it was great. Great conversations. Everyone participated. The thing that always gets highlighted in EdCamp, everybody has something to share. Mm-hmm. They may not think they do, and yet they do. Every person has something they can contribute to the conversation. And I think that's what's really important to highlight, to remind people that, yes, you do know something here. You are a valuable member of this learning community.
Yeah. The other thing, Mike, that it sort of reminds me of is when you are in an in-person conference and you're in the session and you're sort of just sitting there listening. Obviously when you and I and Karen and Beth present, we're much more interactive, but you've been in those sessions where you're just sitting there listening, right? But then you get up and you walk out with somebody and you have a shoulder partner, and then suddenly another person walks up and there's three of you just sort of standing around talking about whatever the thing was, but then you got to run off to the next thing. Mm-hmm. This Ed Camp actually gives you some structure, as unstructured as it is. It gives you more structure to have those sorts of conversations, because then you know what the conversation is going to be about, a general topic. And
it is funny that an Ed Camp, in a way, Chris, is those hallway conversations. That's what it is, right?
But with a little structure around it,
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can always get up and leave. Just like if you want to walk away from those, you can always go like, oh, this isn't session for me. Let me go. This conversation isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go over to this. That's also cool too.
Yeah, I do like that. They call that in an Ed Camp world, the law of 2 feet, which I would argue all of us should use all the time.
Yeah.
If it's not working for you, you have to be true to yourself and go find something that works for you.
Yeah.
I think you have to. And, I always say to people in a session, if a presenter gets mad because you leave, that's the presenter's issue, not your issue. You're there trying to get new information. They're going to have to work through it a little. I've been there. I've been a presenter where people have gotten up and left. I'm like, all right. And now when most people get up and leave, you're like, all right, well, maybe I wasn't doing the right thing. But you think about that from the presenter standpoint of, okay, what didn't I give those people? And flat out, maybe it wasn't what they expected.
Yeah.
I sat in one at the Ed Camp that the title sounded like I would be into it. And then we started talking. I was like, this is not something I'm into. Off I go. I go find something else. So participant led. It can be an Ed Camp. It can be anything you want. You can call it whatever you want. So definitely check that out. All right, Chris, we did it. Chris and I probably could have just kept talking for like another hour.
We could have.
Yeah.
We could have jumped in and looked at some of these tools. We could have watched Notebook LM or listened to an audio, but we would have blast doing that. Don't get me wrong. But we would invite you to go do that as part of your next steps and maybe reflect on some stuff. Like Mike, I think it's a subtle theme that we have through maybe all of the videos that we're creating, but this one in particular, which is, okay, now you've learned something, like maybe one of these things really resonated with you. What are you going to go back and share with your colleagues?
I think that's such a simple way for us to synthesize information. Like, oh, this was really cool. But if I had to elevator pitch this to somebody else, what would I say? How would I start a conversation with them? Like, did you know about, or have you heard, or I just saw the coolest thing. Here's what it is. That idea, because that's what enables these ideas to grow within our schools, within our organizations, is that conversation with our colleagues, with our coworkers, with other educators of how we're going to use this information ultimately to be better at what we do.
Ooh, Mike, one last strategy to throw in here, back to the podcasting, is I know people have used the Talking with Tech podcast, but again, it could be any podcast episode, sort of like a book club. It's a podcast club, or so at our CLTs or PLCs or whatever, your team meetings, we're all, it's Mike's turn. Mike's going to pick an episode. He's going to say, all right, we're all going to listen to this episode, and then we're all going to come back to it. And I'm just going to lead the discussion. I'll have one or two slides, or maybe just have a couple questions that are in my head. Go, all right, did we all listen to the episode? What were our takeaways? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What will you find you use? And then it's Chris's turn next time, and you come back and just doing that iteratively, because again, most people have a commute of some sort, or if not, they're on the treadmill or gardening or whatever. They have time that they can listen. But reading an article or a book, it's a little bit harder to maybe.
It's a commitment, right? I mean, that's a little, and that's not to say a book club isn't great. I'm a huge fan of a professional book club. Pick a book that we're going to read. I mean, if you could see beyond my virtual screen now, which I wouldn't let you see, but if you could, you would see a huge shelf of professional books. That I love reading professional books. I love talking about others about professional books.
You actually have a screenshot in the flip when the screenshot.
That's it. You saw my office a little bit. Go back and look at it. That's the most view you'll ever see of my office. It's not good for viewing. It's a little visually distracting. So definitely check that out. And as we go, how can you keep going? Here's a great infographic we created about questions inclusive educators can ask. If you visit that QR code and sign up for the newsletter, it will send you the link to that. You can have that. Starting to think about, how do you move some of these ideas to practice? How do we start thinking about changing the way we do things as we go forward? Just wait to see if Chris anything before I click the button. He didn't say anything. All right.
No, I think we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah.
Maybe this was your last one, right? Hopefully not, but if it was great having you. Because again, you can do any of these in any order, and we'd invite you to share them. Here's this theme of sharing. Feel free to share these videos with other people.
Thanks very much for your time today. I hope this was interesting to you, and connect with us on social media. Let's keep talking about it. I'd love to. All right, everybody. See you.
Thank you for joining us. Are you a New Jersey educator looking for support or professional development tailored to your district's AT needs? We offer free, customized training and coaching for NJ teachers, paraprofessionals, and families. From hands-on workshops to individual classroom support and small group facilitation, we're here to help. Visit us at atcenter.tcnj.edu to learn more. Have a question? Contact us at atcenter@tcnj.edu. Please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more content on all things assistive technology.